Hey guys, welcome back. Unpopular opinions in Pokemon number 16. Let's get into some. Again, if you haven't already, check out Sakari's YouTube channel. He is the creator of this thread on efour. Link in the description. Starting out, we have Muck, who says, non-hollow 5 out of 82 Dark Dragonite is the most boring / disappointing error imaginable. It'd be really cool if it was the other way around and a regularly non-holographic card was made hollow, but the way it is, it's just a downgrade. So I disagree. I think this is probably one of the coolest errors. Not only has it been repeated, but it's an actual error made by WotC and not just some part of the printing process that messed up. It's not like a smear or something like that. That it's just an equipment malfunction. This was an actual error made by someone at the factory who probably just didn't switch the number. So for those of you who don't know, the 5 out of 82 Dark Dragonite is supposed to be a hollow. There is a non-hollow version, but it has a different set number. I can't remember off the top of my head what that is, but this is what we are dealing with here. Pretty cool. I like it. I know a lot of other people like it. So, great in terms of an unpopular opinion. I'm going to give you some points for that. Bugus says Marnie's overrated. I'm sure some Marnie fans would be irate about this comment. Marnie as a character, I don't think... I guess I haven't seen much in terms of like movie or anime with Marnie as a character in it, so to be determined whether or not she's a good character or not. It's hard to tell from the Sword and Shield games themselves, because maybe this is an unpopular opinion as well, but I feel like they don't have a lot of characteristics that they do in an animated series, similar to I guess the characters that you talk to, whether it would be Misty or Brock or whoever in the game. It's not going to be the same as when they have an actual voice in the anime. So here we go. I think we kind of associate the two. So that's maybe why some of the characters are more lively. I haven't finished all of the most recent Pokemon episodes. So if Marnie's in there, I'm going to have to catch up on that to find out. So, Mr. Parker says, there's too much information in the hobby. Without enough time in the hobby, the information won't be properly understood. What we get is people who know just enough to make mistakes, and unfortunately, it's usually buyers. So, I somewhat agree. You got to remember that not everyone is necessarily going to be as hardcore about collecting as you. Some people just want to dabble, and that's fine. But you can't hold everyone to the standard that they know everything about every card in existence. So here we go. The information is usually good information, but the exactness and circumstantial requirements of some types of information can lead to people who think because a WotC card is supposed to perform such a way in a light test due to an inner core that is new, back Japanese cards perform the same, which isn't the case. I can think of a few more examples which I've had to deal with, where a buyer is misinformed or isn't properly applying information. I guess the best way to put my unpopular opinion would be people who use false information to give me negative feedback on eBay can go to hell, but that's not too unpopular of an opinion, and this post was meant to be negative. I guess that's the thing, like, with eBay, I tell everyone that's getting into eBay, it's customer service. You're going to have to deal with customers that suck, people that are going to think that it wasn't. It's hard to even get people to read the title, let alone look at all the images and the description. So you can't really expect them to have a background in Pokemon, especially if you get into selling obscure items like Japanese that people might not be as familiar with in the West. You're going to run into stuff like this. You're going to run into people that are not happy, that regret the purchase, that want to cancel purchases, everything else. Part of the game. if you want to sell on eBay, that's what's going to happen. Unfortunately, it is the best platform to sell on because you're not going to get more eyes on something than an eBay listing. So people can search it. That's typically where they're going to find it. There are other things or other places that you can sell, but you're not going to get the same exposure. That's the same reason why you can justify paying the eBay fees to sell something on there, is just that more eyes, more likely to sell. Niche says, unpopular opinion, Ultra Beasts get too much flack from adult collectors. I was thinking earlier, and I think that if I was a kid, I'd love most of them, even if they're largely unappealing as an adult. Guzzlord, Buzzwole, Kartana, Celesteela, Xurkitree probably. I know I'd love all those as my younger self. Nostalgia is a hell of a drug, and I think influences more than we think. So, this is entirely it. And also, there's a certain amount of time that it takes before a lot of people accept these new Pokemon. You're going to get complaints. People are weirded out. People are like, why is that even a Pokemon? When they first come out. But eventually, they sort of just get dissolved into the pool of accepted Mons. And I don't know. Like, the Ultra Beasts serve a pretty big role in the Sun and Moon era. And I'm sure there's people that like those Pokemon, and more people will like them in the future. If you're surrounded by people that are, started in Gen 1, which is probably most, I would think, a large portion of the people on efour, then these new Pokemon, they might not even bother to learn their names or really like them, because at that point, like, I think we're a couple Pokemon away from being 900 Pokemon deep. So, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. They're all good Pokemon. And people that are just getting into Pokemon now, that are watching the anime and have more association with those Pokemon, are going to like them more in general. I usually have a few favorites from each generation when it comes out, but that's the thing. Give it some time. Josh B says, I guess it's not Pokemon trading card game specific as such, but top loaders over card savers. Yeah, top loaders I would say yes for shipping. Card savers in general, if I was storing my cards in either one, I would probably go with the card savers. The card savers, when you first use one, are very sketchy. Like, you feel like you're going to bend the card, so it takes a little getting used to, but I feel like those would be the better storage solution if you have to choose one or the other. And you can ship in both, but the card saver having a little bit more bend to it or flex to it, I'd be a little bit more concerned about it getting bent in half. But all right, Euphoric TCG says the screen promos are ugly and overrated. Please don't kick me off this forum. I disagree. I think most people disagree. I don't collect Japanese, and I don't have any of the screen promos, but I do think they're really nice cards, and it's cool that they were released with the museum. Boomslang says, my unpopular opinion is that there are far fewer scalpers than people think there are. Assumptions get made that when there is no product available at Walmart, scalpers bought it all. I completely agree with this. I think the demand to open packs is just that high. You can't profitably scalp battle styles after shipping and eBay fees, yet you still can't find it. Demand for sealed product is just higher than people think it is. I think this is entirely it, especially on release. We're seeing now that product is pretty available in terms of like when the second wave hits and the next thing is coming out and people are all chasing that instead. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of people that are like sealed collectors that have a few boxes on their shelf that could have been something that someone opened, and they're all rushing to get it when the set first comes out. There's going to be future waves. Don't concern yourself too much about getting stuff on exact release date. Don't know what else to say. I think just more people being after the product and the influx of people joining the hobby, whether that's temporary or not. In terms of each individual person, most people don't collect for more than a year, then they sell their stuff off, or you see seal collectors that are like, oh, I gotta let go of my collection because something else I want to buy or whatever, and it's all stuff that you could find at Walmart over the last 6 months. So you'll see a lot of that. Japanime says that cards should never be entrapped in a PSA plastic prison. I agree. I don't see the appeal in graded cards, but to each their own. If people want to get them graded, go to town. If you're going to do so, I think PSA is the best option. It was the best option before this influx and backlog, and I think it will return to mostly that state when all is said and done. Oh, we got some notifications here. Maybe I'll turn that off. William Kuhlman says, people only care about the cards. Nobody ever thinks to grade the safe they are in. Good one. Right here. Niche says, new opinion. I don't understand the people who collect a bunch of numbers of the same graded card, including Charizard collectors. Like, yeah, you like the art / history of the card or whatever, but how is it not mind-numbingly boring to look at your thousands of dollars of the exact same thing? It just seems so incredibly dull to me. So I think that might be more along the lines. Most people that are doing that are probably doing it for the sake of selling some of them or all of them later on and speculating on individual cards. Myself, I would prefer to have all different cards, and that's why I just sell or trade off all my duplicates to get more cards that are unique or different from the ones that I own. Yeah, I don't know, but everyone can collect in their own way, and that's kind of the beauty of collecting hobbies like this one, that if someone only likes one card for whatever reason, that's their special card, and they want to make a sofa out of graded Charizards, and they're all the same Charizard, then go to town. Mr. Parker says, English is to Japanese what Korean is to English. I don't understand how some of these exclusive 15-year-old, hard-to-obtain Japanese promos sell graded PSA 10 for what the most recent English Charizard sells for raw. It's not English is just as Fugazi to Japanese as Korean is Fugazi to English. So, English, pretty global language compared to Japanese, which is exclusive to Japan for the most part. I mean, not that you can't speak Japanese outside of Japan, but that's just how it is. Also, you would argue the money language. So I don't know. People aren't going to have that same attachment to Japanese cards. Yes, they are the original. So if people are going to gravitate to anything other than English, sure, they'll go to Japanese. There's so many English options that people find it hard to reach into the Japanese stuff, short of the hardcores or somebody that's really interested in that for some reason. I know there's a lot of people that got into the Japanese stuff even when English was pretty inexpensive. They went with the Japanese stuff because it was an even more inexpensive option. And it's the original, so there's like different reasons to get into one or the other, but same release. If you have all other things equal, the English is going to outperform the Japanese. And I mean, obscure Japanese promos aren't exactly within everyone's reach in terms of knowing what they are. Again, this is getting into another category of, you have to be pretty hardcore to want to do research on some Japanese promo to find out how it was released, where you can get it, how to buy it, what it's worth, everything else. And even someone like myself, I don't go into the Japanese stuff. I would love to eventually, but I have so many English cards that I want to collect that it's just another region that isn't on the checklist at the moment. So I think typically that's how it works. People don't usually start right into the Japanese stuff unless they're from Japan or something. Usually English, and then if they get bored of that or they find out about some promos or something, then they'll branch off into that. Fresco says, I can't understand how you still can get near mint to mint unlimited holo cards from WotC, mostly Neo era, for less than $30. It's not super easy to find them, but they are available. Well, it's going to blow your mind, but a couple years ago, they were like $10 Canadian. And even base set unlimited. It's just like there was so much of this WotC unlimited stuff printed that it's hard for it to go up in value. Yes, there's a lot of nostalgia for it. Neo era probably died down quite a bit compared to those initial few sets, but at the same time, volume. The volume that was printed, the volume that was available, and none of it was very hard to pull, I think is also an important factor. Like today, there's probably more printed than ever. Lots of people in the hobby, lots of people opening, but there's some cards that are extremely rare. Something like base set, you're going to get most of the holos in the set, which are the chase cards. But if we look at today's set, if you have to open 800 packs to get some of these really hard chase cards, then the print numbers don't really matter as much. So, I don't know. It's hard to know the exact numbers and how it will react. People were also purchasing cards back then, mostly for the sake of just enjoying them. Unlike today, where people are grading them straight out of the pack and can do so at an affordable rate. Well, short of the grading fees aren't really the affordable part, but the ability to pull cards and sleeve them. So anyone that's doing that, I would, unless you're flip dip 69 in right away, probably want to hold off on grading things if you're in it for the long term. Polytoad666 says that this might be a true unpopular opinion, but I think it's silly and obnoxious when people second guess grades for secondary market purposes. What the F is the point of getting a card professionally graded if people are going to look at it and go, this has a little too much whitening for a 9, I'll pay the price of an 8. This goes in the other direction too. Selling this for more than usual because it's a strong 9, possibly a 10 regrade. Just rubs me the wrong way. It seems extremely entitled and nitpicky. Maybe justified if you're dealing with like a $10,000 item. So I think this $10,000 threshold that you're setting is maybe a little bit to do with your budget, not necessarily the budget of someone else. And I think this just reinforces the fact that grading is subjective and not everyone's going to agree with it. You're never going to get a real grade on something. At least not for the most part. If it's less than a strong 10, people are going to argue that it's not graded properly. So at that point, why are you paying money to get it graded? Don't know. All right, Squirtle 1000 says, possibly unpopular opinion. I really don't like the term junk slab. It seems aggressive and elitist to refer to slabs that way. No slab is a junk slab, just like no card is a junk card. I would agree, but there are certain cards that are bulk, just like there are certain slabs that aren't going to add value. And whether you want to call them junk slabs or no value slabs or sucky ducky slabs, call them what you want. But there's certain cards that you can't just grade anything and it's going to add value. I know because I've cracked many cards for my binder and the price of the card was less than the near mint copy. So I think that's largely in reference to that. Well, the junk part of it being like junk wax in sports, junk slab. So typically people referring to the fact that everyone's just grading everything. And that's why we see all these backlogs. And that there's just going to be infinite graded cards, especially from the grading companies that are not going to exist when all is said and done. So call it what you want. It is what it is. If you're offended by the word junk slab, I don't go on the internet because there's much worse out there. Genosha says, after receiving the cards I bought last week, the 25th anniversary McDonald's set is the worst product on the market at the moment. At the prices for the cards are hyperinflated because everybody fears for missing out on the damn foils. So I don't know if it's necessarily the foils, what it is, missing out. I think the McDonald's stuff was extreme FOMO. And it's crazy to me that no one cared about McDonald's Pokemon cards until this set was coming out, and everyone was looking for the next thing to chase. So, yeah, I would say that it has and will decline pretty hard. Will says, unpopular opinion, modern seal product will appreciate even though everyone and their mother is holding onto a few booster boxes. When I was a kid, I opened maybe 2 booster packs. My nostalgia for WotC is limited, but the connection I feel to Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield now as a 28-year-old is strong, and in 20 years I'll have more of a desire to own a Cosmic Eclipse DTB than an Aquapolis booster pack. This weird 2020-2021 resurgence will have a significant impact 20 years from now. Yeah, probably. I mean, even just a lot of the younger people that are involved right now, I think are going to have more of an impact than the people that are maybe temporarily back in to get a little taste of the Pokemon. So we'll see. And then everyone holding on to a few booster boxes, I think, is overstated. The people that you see with a few boxes on the shelf, a lot of that is going to end up being resold or opened or both. So I think people overestimate the amount of people that are actually holding sealed product. I think Rudy says the same thing with the magic stuff. King Pokemon says, by the end of the year, there will be a computerized grading method that will go through designating, grading, labeling, encapsulating, and packaged within 60 seconds. I'm going to say that is probably not going to happen, at least not in an effective way. I have my doubts. People seem to get this impression that the AI grading is like the new thing, and it'll be able to just put your card in a scanner and it'll tell you exactly what the grade is and it'll be flawless. There's a lot more involved in that. Don't know what to tell you. I will believe it when I see it. Done to say that it won't happen eventually, but I think it's crazy to believe that you can get an accurate and better grading system almost instantly from computer means only. I can only imagine the time and effort that would have to go into research and development, and with a company that is probably just starting with the recent influx. Again, I haven't looked into it. I haven't seen any of this process, but I can't imagine that this is going to be a viable option in the near future. And also, my advice would be to hold off on it, let it prove itself. If it turns out to be super duper awesome, just like any of the other grading companies that are almost certainly temporary, then get in later on. It'll be fine. It's their service isn't going anywhere, so let them prove themselves before you actually take the step and spend money on something that is more likely to flop than anything else. Cerulean, not sure this is an unpopular opinion as much as it is something that just isn't discussed very often, but I think Neo Revelation is the most well-designed set in the history of the hobby. Yeah, I like the Neo sets. It's kind of weird how they're different sizes, but incredible artwork, 2 incredibly rare cards in Shining Gyarados and Shining Magikarp. The Shining cards are nice. And then enough beautiful holos that hold their weight both in terms of value and popularity. I really wish Pokemon would go back to this much more simple format rather than the 894 different types of rarity, even though the cards all somehow look the same that we see today. I'll probably never happen, but it's fun to think about. So, yeah, I guess so. I would disagree that they don't look the same. I mean, set size is out of control. They need to dial that back a little bit. Maybe take some of the rarities out, like the hyper rares. I've been saying constantly, just take the hyper rares out. Just let them. They had their day in the hay. Cerulean. All right, what's with the last part here? I would also settle for an EX series type setup. Gold stars, EX cards, holos. So, well, I got some good news for you. The modern sets are basically that. If you want to count the alternate arts as gold stars, but I would imagine that over time we'll see that the alternate arts are going to be included more often and easier to pull. There'll probably be more of them, but I imagine that you get more per box or per however many packs it takes to pull one. Seems to be the theme with the chase cards, is like they make them super exclusive at first, and then they gradually introduce more and more of them as the sets go on. If you look at like EXs and stuff like that, the lowercase EXs. Cedar says, I'm reluctant to buy booster boxes because I'm afraid of high quality counterfeits in the future, with grading companies saying they will likely never grade them because of liability of authenticating a fake box, especially with high-end boxes, turns me off. Please change my mind. So if you're going to get into high-end boxes and older stuff, you have to be extremely careful. Make sure you're getting them from a good source. Make sure that you know what you're looking for in terms of reseals and anything else. If it gets to a certain value, you might have to actually open the box and verify that they're not resealed packs or the wrong packs. Similar to what TCA did with his first edition booster box, because it just gets more and more sketchy when the value goes up. There's more incentive for people to reseal. Explorer says, here are a couple of opinions, which I imagine range from mildly unpopular to will probably get me banned from efour. Solgaleo is one of the Pokemon's best legendaries. I don't know where Solgaleo would rank on my list, but I would agree. I think it's a great legendary. I hope the 25th anniversary set is a dud. Modern has been too good this year. My wallet needs a break. So, certainly a lot of hype behind it, but at least it's a small set for you, and the values will, I think, continue to go down as people open more and more of this. Nothing too overly difficult to pull, so take that as you will. You get the ultra premium, which it seems like the Pokemon Center was putting more up yesterday. So, I mean, I can't imagine that if people are still begging for that ultra premium collection, that they won't maybe make some more up. I would be surprised if they didn't. Kamiya art is bad. We've already seen this. I think that was in the last video or the video before. But art is subjective, and if you think it's bad, then you think it's bad. I disagree. I think it's interesting and exciting to see the new Kamiya artwork in a set. Jared's Challenge says, I think the last 3 Charizards aren't worth the stock they're printed on, and their collector value won't hold based on the mass printing they're continuing to push into the stink sets. So I think you need to work on theirs. I don't know. I think the fact that they're so hard to pull is going to mean that they can retain some value. And even if they dip down, that long term, when you can't get the packs anymore, they're probably going to be fairly expensive. For that reason alone, Whatsy Fetish says, I strongly believe a big part of new collectors lie to themselves about their motivations. They love Pokemon and have a relationship with cards, I admit that, but as soon as their beloved card drops hard in price and prestige, they will switch their attention. So I don't know if this is talking about like new people that enter the hobby. There was a time when Pokemon was nerd level. It seems like efour needs to work on their theirs. There. Was a time when Pokemon was nerd level over 9,000 and there was little to no financial value. So when they really loved Pokemon, why did they start now? So I don't know. Like sometimes it takes a certain, not necessarily financial, but if they see that other people are into it, or they have friends that are into it, it might be motivation to discover it or to rediscover it. So it's similar to like a Pokemon Go or anything like that. If somebody has their attention brought back to it and they see that other people are doing it, that it's cool, that they're not embarrassed, or they don't have to be embarrassed to enjoy a hobby, that they enjoyed as a kid, or if they enjoy that type of game or cards or whatever. So there's a lot of that. You see a lot of new people into the hobby that they're ashamed to like go to the cash register with a booster pack, and even let on that it's for their nephew or something like that. But it's weird. So I don't know. I think the general acceptance allows people to enjoy it. I know this is extreme and could be seen negative. Smiley face. When friends I know since 15 years that never talked about Pokemon suddenly ask Pokemon questions, that's the biggest warning sign for me. So I think that's a little bit of a warning sign when I have, whether it be my mom or anyone else that says, "Oh, did you see like Pokemon cards are worth money?" It's a pretty good warning sign that we're on an uptick that is probably not going to last. And we've seen stuff retrace already, but the all-time hype has faded off some, and I think it will continue to fade off. Not saying that the prices are going to retrace all the way back to like 2018 or whatever, but I think they're going to come back down to a point that they're going to normalize, or maybe even just a little bit above that, to where they would have, the trajectory they would have taken had this explosion of new collectors not happened. Rip Guy Fox has a paragraph here for us. Let's see if we can trudge through it. So here's one I can really only post in this thread because it's just an opinion and completely baseless at that. Really, I have nothing to back this up except for my gut feeling. I think the all-time high we are experiencing now won't be surpassed for the next 10 years. Doesn't mean that I think we're in a bubble, because that implies the whole situation is fragile and can come crashing down overnight, which it won't. But I do think we are in a prolonged state of euphoria that will end this year. Then the prices will fall slowly but gradually for 1 to 2 years, then stay low for a long time. I really think this phase we are going through right now is that extraordinary. And from what my amateur eye can tell, sales of more expensive items, not trophies, but items in the $1,000 to $10,000 range, have already shown signs of price decline, or have at least stagnated. I also sell some items here and there, and demand/requests have been much less frequent than last year, possibly because the prices have reached a plateau at which the current buyer pool doesn't have an average income that's high enough to sustain the price level anymore. All they can do is turn to cheaper products, modern, which in turn is increasing in price as well, following the trend of vintage, which has reached the plateau already. But what happens if prices in modern TCG reach the point where people can't buy anymore as well, where there's cheaper products, they will turn to them? Again, this is my personal feeling. No facts, no data, so no need to get angry over this if you have a different opinion. So, I think this to an extent, but I don't think it's like... I think certain items are going to drop back down to where they were. As I said, I think it's going to kind of self-regulate back into the natural growth of... Stuff shouldn't grow, whether it be singles or sealed stuff, more than like 10% a year. I think is abnormal and not sustainable. And I think the declines in sales and everything else that you're seeing is largely to do with it's not as much the new hype thing to do. Not saying that it's cooled off entirely, but now you don't see every Twitch streamer in existence breaking Pokemon boxes like you were at one point in time. So we've seen the hype down some, but I think there's still ways to go to bring it back down to sort of a normal. And also kind of giving enough time for the people that got in that are, they're interested. I'm not saying that they hate Pokemon and are only in it for the money, but there's a lot of people that will, after a year, die down or lose interest and move on to other things. So I think we're starting to see some of that. I don't think it's going to be like necessarily 10 years. Well, some stuff probably. It might be 10 years before it comes back all the way back up. But it's hard to say. And unless you're looking at one individual product, if something like 20x'd, then yeah, you might get a situation where it might not reach that all-time high until many years from now. But Smokemon says Jungle is the best set. I would disagree. I like Jungle, but I find Jungle and Fossil are a little bit too small, and I'm not really a fan of the holo rares having non-holo rare counterparts. just to, have more items in the set. It's good for players, I guess, at the time, since there's affordable options for everything. But in terms of collecting, I don't really want to see the same card. I guess it's kind of like a reverse of that day and age, where you have two of the same card. Quichancy says, sales over the past year have shown that while efour collectors may be passionate about unique art, it is not the driving force in collectability, overall high-end market desirability, price. Historical nature of the card is showing to be increasingly more important than individual art. Examples, PSA 10, no number Charizard setting a new auction record, partly because it was non-unique art with one of the most recognizable Charizard images. PSA 9 also beat out every English set card in PSA 9. So PSA 9 Charizard. Similar scenario of recognizable art with Topps Chrome series. See, that's like wild to me, like the Topps Chrome stuff. I still have like, I don't know. I still not crazy about it. I know as a kid I wasn't. It was the other Pokemon cards that you get, the top stuff, when the actual Pokemon trading card game cards were not available. So I don't know. To me, that's always what they'll be. I get the appeal. There's Pokemon on them, and they're old and collectible. But just not for me. First tournament, 97 Pikas, consistently more coveted than 98 versions, while first tournament are indeed lower distribution. The art is still identical on second tournament, 97 and 98. So yeah, they're really like population. PSA 10 Unicarp, printed with same art in web series, selling for 50k, then 66k on PWCC. Outselling many rare, harder to find non-holo trophy cards, e.g. Lucky Stadium Tropical Wind, and holo trophy cards, e.g. Authentic Grey TMB. I think Unicarp is just like well known and extremely popular. A lot of Magikarp fans out there, so and yes, it's the same artwork on the other card, but it's still not the same. I don't know. Could it be more exciting of a card? Yes. Is the release holding it up? Definitely. Protostoys record sale. This one is a stretch, but point stands. Man, Protostoys. God, don't get me started on Protostoys. On another note, unique holo pattern, but same art is clearly enough of a differentiator for massive price premiums. All play promo Evolution Gold Stars selling for more than their English counterparts. Curious how upcoming first edition WCP ones on PWCC will perform. I have no idea how they did. So like the English counterparts, I don't know if you can compare that just like based on the holo, because it's English versus Japanese, and also the release being much different. Huge difference in the release more than anything, and I think that's the same thing to do with like the Unicarp and the web series Carp. That's the same one more than it is to do with the holo or the whatever's on the card. I think you could exchange these and they'd probably still have the same. You could change the holo for the non-holo and they'd probably still behave relatively close to what they're doing now. Lottery Expedition Charizard jumping in price along with other lottery promos. English Jungle First Edition holos reaching 10 to 15k in PSA 10, when identical non-holo arts exist in the set for a fraction of the price. So yeah, I mean, typically there's a lot of people that will only collect holos in the like WotC era, so it doesn't surprise me that a card that's a fraction of the price to begin with before it's graded, even if you grade both and they're both PSA 10s, that there's still going to be a huge disparity in that. Ledios King says Legendary Collection is a dud. It feels exact same as base 2. Again, Legendary Collection sort of had a purpose of being for the players. It's cool that they had the reverses in there. Shining Charizard from Neo Destiny is ugly. So this is probably, I don't know if this is because he's purple, but Shining Charizard was purple at one point in time instead of the black version that we see today. Neo Rev over Neo Destiny. Again, I don't know if I have a favorite Neo set, and I haven't looked back to really decide which one would be my favorite. Skyridge and other e-reader sets are ugly, except some hollows and crystals. Disagree. I think some of the best art, especially for the time, if you consider all things before and after it, a lot of the e-reader sets have absolutely amazing art. This is where it really started to pop off, where the backgrounds really started to get the attention they deserve. Flashfire is terrible. I don't know. It's in terms of value, if you're not like a Charizard fan, maybe you can consider it as terrible compared to the other sets around that era, but in terms of the rest of the set, it's fine. You could replace the Charizards with something else, and I think it would be just as good as anything around that era. Why does everyone love Evolutions now? When it was printed and available for years, everyone complained about getting Evolutions in tins. Now everyone loves it. So this is, I think, largely to do with new people entering the hobby. If they weren't around for Evolutions when it came out, they want to be now because everyone that was in love with base set wants to open something that looks like base set, and that's what Evolutions is. Prime cards are not cool. I think everyone that was complaining about it being in tins is not necessarily excited about it now, unless they're trying to flip it or sell it, or they had some stashed away and made money off of it. Prime cards are not cool. I like Prime cards. I don't like them as much as that. I think the lv.x is a better Prime in terms of the artwork and the way that the cards laid out. Pikachu VMAX is very overpriced. So I don't know if he's talking about the hyper rare. Hyper rare is extremely hard to pull. It's Pikachu. Is it overpriced? Maybe because of the current market, but I can't imagine in the long term that you could consider it overpriced with just being how hard it is to pull and the Pokemon that's on it. So black and white sets are terrible except for a couple secret rares. I would disagree. I think black and white sets are fine. Kendall says Ruby and Sapphire, Sandstorm, Dragon are the spiritual successors of Base Jungle Fossil and feel analogous to me in a way more ways than both trios, just being the first of each era. Yeah, so I think we see this a little bit at the start of every generation. But yeah, I never really thought about it that way. But cool to do that. Gotta catch 'em all says 100% robotic / AI / computerized grading will never be a thing, and even if it was, it would barely be better, if at all. With the meme here, stop trying to make AI grading happen. It's not going to happen. I'd have to agree. I think if there is any sort of AI grading at the moment, it's going to be overstated. And the fact that it's not going to be completely A through Z. And you're going to have just as many hiccups, if not more, if it's not finely tuned, which could take so much research and time that I just really have my doubts. Card grading is subjective and always will be. It just has to be. A computer can never and will never grade cards because it's all about the human eye appeal to human, and whoever thinks it'll happen is living in a fairy tale world. You'd have a human element no matter the case, as you'd have to set allowances for each metric that the computer is measuring, calculating, and no matter the case, you'd have borderline cards that came up one way or the other some amount of times. It isn't just taking the mass of an object or measuring a single absolute metric. It would require a complex multivariable algorithm, and normal production variances are just too far wide to make anything useful of it. And again, no matter the resultant grade a card comes up with, you'd have borderline cards, which is one of people's biggest problems anyways. Unless you went to a 100-point grading system, but then people would cry about their OCD. I feel like I posted this before, but people just keep talking about it more it seems. I'll eat these words if I'm proven wrong, but I wasn't holding my breath before, and I am still not. We're stuck with what we've got, folks. So I think this is largely it. It's sort of when you have those like AI sort of like presentations or whatever, and they show a robot nurse walking around that says like, hey, what's your temperature? And it's mostly for show. It's mostly to get some sort of funding or anything else. And you rarely ever see it come to an end point or to a point where it's actually this crazy thing that people want to believe it is. So I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it, and I can't see it happening anytime soon. Smokemon says secret rare cards should not be on the official card set list. I agree, but I mean, with the amount of secret rare cards that there are now, they might as well just make the set that size. Different when there's like one card and you're like, oh man, it's not even in the set. It's 101 out of 100. That's wild. I didn't even know it was in here. So if you just didn't have the card list of all the secret rares now, when there's like 100 secret rares, then I guess you might as well not have a list at all. Nachi says, I like looking at cards in Card Saver 1s more than binders, graded slabs, raw, etc. Then I suggest you stick them in there if you don't already. It depends how you're collecting. If it's a limited collection or it's not in sets or anything like that, Card Saver 1s or something else might make sense. But I would disagree and say that binders are definitely the way to go, regardless of, for me at least, regardless of whether it's a set or just your favorite cards, to be able to flip through the pages and see everything all at once, versus like taking them apart. Omaha Anime says, I don't like Z moves and Dynamaxing. I don't know. I like Sun and Moon. Z moves, kind of not my favorite gimmick. Dynamaxing, I think, would have been better, or Gigantamaxing, Dynamaxing would have been better off being more Mega Evolutions, but I think it's just maybe my bias that I really like Mega Evolutions. Blast Boost 86, and that's sort of what some of them are when they change. It's basically just a jumbo Mega Evolution. So weird to see that they didn't continue on with that, but you gotta have your separate gimmicks for each generation, I guess, or each region. Blast Boost 86 says Charizard is excessively overrated and gets one-hit KO'd by the better Pokemon Blastoise, smiley face. Also, he is a lizard, not a dragon. He should be a dragon, but yeah, I guess he's a lizard. And Blast Boost 86, I think your name is exposing your bias there, that you might like Blastoise more than Charizard. Azul Rio says, back condition doesn't matter with exception to trade please. I disagree. The way that I have my cards bindered, I don't see the back anyway, but at the same time, I'd much prefer a card that doesn't look like someone rubbed it all over the table, with scratches all over it. Whitening a little bit is fine, as long as it looks like it came out of a pack. I'm usually pretty happy with it, short of some factory error where it got run over by a forklift. Euphoric TCG says, the Master Scroll is an ugly and tacky card. Please go easy on me. I wouldn't say it's ugly and tacky, but I personally don't see the appeal in it. It's just a scroll with some holo showing through it. If I'm going to spend that much money on a card, I'd probably prefer one that has a Pokemon in the artwork more than a scroll. But to each their own. If somebody wants a scroll, scroll away. Quachancy says, when people recommend you diversify your assets, they don't mean going after a different era or generation of Pokemon to start buying sealed as well as singles, or to complement your binder sets with graded cards. That's just expanding your Pokemon collection, not diversifying. Yes, I'm guilty. And last but not least, we have Lavender Gengar, who says, hey, a new member here. YouTubers always putting up the value of PSA 10 cards as the de facto price, even when they clearly aren't PSA 10 candidates most of the times. I would agree. I think you see this a lot in pack breaks, and maybe some sort of way to trick people into thinking or make people feel better about what they're getting. When you see, a big price tag show up on the screen, they don't seem to mention the fact that it's very unlikely that it's actually a 10. Not to mention the fact that you'd have to pay grading fees, which are, not exactly inexpensive at the moment. Plus, if you're going with like PSA or whatever, you're going to have an increased fee based on the value of the card. So, not great. I think this is just to make people feel better about the fact that they spent a bunch of money on a pack and probably didn't get very much out of it, or make them think that there's a better chance of getting something expensive. I guess it looks better, but most people should or do know that the prices are not real on a lot of this stuff. I could never do that personally. I would never quote a PSA 10 price. Maybe even if you had a range, if you had like PSA 8 to 10 and you had a range on the screen, might be a little bit better and more honest. But 2, the complete disregard to modern holos, even more so by YouTubers and influencers. They're still amazing and above average holographic rares that outclass most EX, GX, V, etc. So I don't know. There's they shouldn't really in terms of value. Although some of the recent holos are pretty hard to pull. When there's a lot of holos in a set and you're only guaranteed so many holos per box, then I can see a world where maybe those are going to go up in value more than people seem to think. When you have people later on that are completing sets or looking to get those holographic cards, maybe they're overlooked, especially because you can get them so cheap, short of things that are playable, which will probably be cheap in the future, maybe a generation or two from now. You'll probably be able to grab those super duper cheap. All right, guys, this was a long one. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.